Hi, today we're going to do something different. Recently, some of our readers asked if we can build an overhead camera rig. Now, online you can find quite a few of those, and we looked at them but didn't find anything that we really liked. So we decided to build something of our own. This video will show you the results of what we have done. So let's take a look. There are many ways to build an overhead camera rig. Online you can find quite a few different builds. Most of them use some sort of a table-mounted base, either from wood or from metal. We decided to go with a different approach and based our build on a wall-mounted TV arm. The obvious downside to this is that you won't be able to move your rig easily. You will need to be next to a wall, obviously, and you will need to be able to drill some holes into the wall. The upside is that you're going to start with something which is very, very robust. It has internal built-in movement capability, and it does not take room on your desk, which is very important if you're working in a cramped environment like we do. You can get a decent TV articulated arm online starting at about $15 and going way over $100 depending on the brand and the size of the arm. Cameras are typically much lighter than most TVs these days, so you really don't need anything too expensive or too big. Talking about size, TV arms connect to the wall using jumbo screws, and on the other side they connect to the TV using what is known as a Vesa mount, which is this type of plate that you can see here. Let's put it aside for a second. These plates typically have either 4 or in this case 8 holes. There are several standards, but the most common is 75, 100 and 200 millimeters. The number gives the distance between the holes, and anything which has, in this case we have the closer ones are 7.5 millimeters, and the longer, the more distant ones are 100 millimeter, 10 centimeters away from each other. So these are the most common standards, and these are the ones that we are going to use. Now comes the fun part. You will need to find a way to connect the Vesa mount to your camera, or basically the arm with the Vesa mount to your camera. Now, these are typically not compatible with regular camera gear. It's not 1/4 inch or 3/8 or 5/8. These threads, basically they are not threaded. These are just holes. So you will need to find a way to connect them. And this was a challenge. So basically we looked online and for quite some time until we find something which was an option for us. And we are going to use either 75 or the 100, as we said. And we looked for something that was compatible. Eventually we ran into a product from a company that we didn't know called 9 Solutions. We decided to get in touch, and they were quick to answer and very helpful. Apparently they're a Taiwanese manufacturer, although the design of their product is done in Europe, and they have a US distributor. So 9 Solution focuses basically on accessories, and more specifically on high quality mounting accessories for both photographer but mostly for videographers. And they have a pretty interesting selection or list of products with a number of pretty innovative stuff, including what we needed for this project, which was a Vesa mount to 5/8 adapter, which you can see right now. This adapter also has a nice bonus of 2 extra connectors, one for 1/4 inch 20 and one for 3/8. We will talk about this in a second. However, even with the adapter, we only had one part of the solution. This wasn't enough for building the overhead rig. We still needed a way to place our camera in the correct orientation. You can of course flip the image if you like in post-process, but during editing basically, but we wanted to eliminate this extra step. So we wanted to create something which will give us the right orientation of the image straight off the camera, which is always a good thing. To solve the orientation problem, we initially considered some sort of a metal rod with either 3/8 or 1/4 20 on both sides, but we couldn't find anything to really fit the bill. Talking to 9 Solutions, they suggested that we should use their elbow arm, which can hold up to about 14 kilograms, which is way over what we needed for this project. And will give us some sort of play basically with the angles, as well as a bit more reach with our camera than just what we get from the TV arm alone, We wanted to be able to further away the camera from the wall basically, so we'll be able to center the camera here on the center of the table, which is below where we basically shoot the video. Now, we also had a second issue, which is micro adjustment. We wanted to be able to change the position or the angle of the camera. Now, for this we needed some sort of a head. We tried using a ball head, but it wasn't ideal because when you open it, basically it opened all axes, and it wasn't a very good solution. And it also didn't have the quick release plate that we normally use on all of our gear. And we didn't have a ball head with an RC2, Manfrotto RC2, a quick release head like we use on most of all of our other stuff. So we decided that the best solution will be some sort of a small three-way head that will give us the control from all directions separately. Since the US importer of 9 Solutions happened to work with Studio Assets, which is a company which produces all sorts of gear, including tripod heads and tripods, it was they were basically kind enough to suggest a specific one, low-profile three-way head, which seems to do basically just the trick, just what we needed for this type of project. And you can see it right now, and it worked very well for us. Very nice to do some nice small adjustments to make sure that the camera is angled perfectly at the table below. After we received all the components, it was a simple matter of installing the TV arm to the wall using some heavy-duty bolts, as we mentioned, and connecting the Vesa mount of the TV arm to the 9 Solution Vesa adapter using some M4 screws with nuts on the other side, creating a very, very strong connection. The next step was to install the elbow arm. After some testing, we decided that installing it from the top was the strongest way of installing it, basically for the most secure connection. And finally, it was a matter of connecting the three-way head to the arm, and this was basically the entire installation process. Here are a few points to keep in mind that we have learned during the build of the overhead camera rig. First, consider the height. Do some testing with the lens or lenses that you're going to use the rig with, and see what size of frame you're going to get. We are currently using a Nikon D7100 with a 35mm lens, and from a height of about 1 meter we're getting 70 centimeters across and about, I would say, 40mm frame from top to bottom. So this is what we are going to get. You might get something different with a different camera and a different lens, so test this out before you actually install the rig. So this is one thing. Now the second thing is obviously consider the lenses. I would say that you should consider zoom lenses if you have them, and they will give you basically more play with the area of the frame that you will get and allow you to get a little bit closer. Although if you really want to get close, something like, I would say, 100mm macro lens is possibly the best option. Other macro lenses might work as well, but probably not too short ones if you really want to get close. Now the third thing that you need to consider is control. How you are going to actually control the camera, because it is on the rig. So you don't want to be, you won't be able to actually see what you're doing with the camera unless you're on a ladder or something like that. So if you're doing stills, I would say that a remote might be a good option. It's not very convenient, but it's very cheap and you probably have one already. So for stills, a remote, either wired or wireless, is a good option. If you're doing video like we are going to do, or we are doing, then this probably not going to do the trick, and you will need something different in order to actually see what you're recording. Now, for a long time now, we have been using a software, which is both a software and an app now, called DSLR Dashboard, which is available, as we said, for PC and for either Android or iOS for about $9. For PC is free, as we said. This is very, very powerful piece of software or application with the ability to control more or less every aspect of your camera, including ISO, so you can change the ISO, the shutter speed, the white balance, the exposure compensation. You can start and stop videos, do autofocus, and basically do a lot of other things. You have time lapse and a million other things that you can do to control the image. You can do zoom in and out. Of course, you can do timer shooting if you're shooting stills. Many options. You have here all sorts of other things that you can change. More or less anything that you can change on the camera itself, you can change here as well. As well as some filters that you could do to add to your image. So for example, this is sepia if you like, and you can do focus peaking and basically any other. This is gray, invert. You have all sorts of other functionalities here. We're going to do a separate video on all the capabilities of the DSLR dashboard as part of a second basically DIY video that we are currently recording. So wait up for that, but this is a really great piece of software that you can use not even with just the overhead camera, just we're using it to shoot all of our videos here on LensVid. But for an overhead camera, it's really useful, and we are using this with a Samsung tablet. As you can see, we got this from Samsung. This is the Galaxy Tab S2, pretty new tablet, very powerful, very capable. The only drawback maybe for video is this is a 4:3 aspect ratio tablet, but actually for DSLR dashboard it's pretty cool because you have all these menus and things to press on the side, so it doesn't bother us too much. So this is a really useful tablet. Obviously you can use different ones as well, but we really enjoyed using this for both this project and our secondary project on basically camera rigs. You will see it in a short while on LensVid as well. So this is in terms of how to actually control. Again, we are using this with a Samsung using a wireless transmitter on our D7100. So we use it until now, but a few seconds ago, the battery on the camera died, and this is the fourth thing that you have to keep in mind. Batteries die out very quickly when you're doing wireless transmission like we are doing. Now, of course, you can connect this wiredly, basically with a wire to a tablet or of course to a laptop and work like this, and it will probably drain the battery slightly less. But I would suggest if you're doing long runs of videos with your overhead camera, I would highly suggest either getting a second battery or a third battery, or even better, getting a dummy battery and connecting the camera directly to the power, which will allow you to shoot endlessly, basically, as far as you can, as long as you want, or as long as you have the SD card to support it. So this is the fourth thing. Now, there are a few other things to consider. I would consider the surface or the background that you're going to shoot on. Now, we are using here two tiles. You don't even see the separation, but these are two tiles of ceramic tiles, basically. I would say that you shouldn't use anything which is distracting, noisy, or too colorful as a background. It's not a good idea. I would also not use anything which is reflective, so use white, gray, or something like this. I would say that totally white will not be very good in terms of lighting, but something gray or semi-white like this is a good surface. Completely black is probably also not a very good idea, but again, it really depends on what you're shooting, and if you're shooting stills, then by all means use reflective or whatever you want, but for video it's not a good idea. Finally, let's talk about lighting. We're currently using two powerful pipeline reporter lights, and we're going to do, they are both LED lights, one on each side, so we have one here and one one on this side and one on this side, and we're going to do a review on them. Of course, you can use all sorts of different lights. It's not video about lighting, but keep that in mind, because you really need to light the entire space evenly, or as evenly as possible, in order to get a nice frame. These lights, the lights that we are using, the pipeline reporter lights, are not very cheap, but they work well, and as we said, we're going to do a video about them. So from here, let's conclude everything that we've talked about on this build. We are really pleased with the rig that we were able to create for this project. It is a very robust and probably will last for many years. It can hold more or less any type of camera that we will throw at it, and it won't move by accident or tip down unintentionally. This wasn't a cheap DIY project, mind you. The TV arm was about $35 here in Israel, although in the US you can probably get it for half as much, as we mentioned. The 9-solution Vesa adapter cost about $75, and the arm, the elbow arm from 9-solution, cost about $80. As for the 3-way head, we used, as we said, the Studio Asset Magnesium 3-way low-profile pan tilt head, which cost about $70 and worked very well, as we mentioned. You can probably get them in photo for about the same price, but both of them should do the job. We like the low profile of the Studio Asset head. At the end of the day, we're looking at a total cost of about, I would say, $260. As we said, not exactly an inexpensive DIY project, but a very robust one. Now, this is not entirely DIY, as all the components are off the shelf. But since we are assembling things that were not specifically designed to do this job, I would still call it a DIY project. We would like to see something which is not a DIY solution for a complete overhead camera rig from at least one of the manufacturers, and this is something that we weren't able to find online. Maybe 9-solutions will take this challenge in the future, but it really depends on how much interest they will see from users. We would envision a TV-like wall mount with 3 robust metal telescopic arms. Think about the tripod legs coming out of the wall that will allow you to set the angle and the distance of the camera, plus the option for a 4th vertical arm, something that we don't have here on this build, that will allow us to adjust the height and distance of the camera from the table. This would be really, really cool. A complete set like this should cost, in our view, around $200, and in our opinion, it will find, I think, a niche market with quite a few interested photographers, and maybe other people as well, people who record video for YouTube, for example. So this was our take on building an overhead camera rig. We've used it for this video, as well as a few other LensVid video which we recently recorded, and we are going to use it quite a bit in the future as well. If you have your own thoughts on how to build an overhead camera rig, share them with us on YouTube, Facebook, and on LensVid, where you can find the full article for this build. Of course, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and as always, see you on the next video.